as I was just telling the lady at the front, it's my third year at GSM, so I was looking to do Palm Springs, Orlando, and now this one. And I think one of the sort of running themes of probably pretty much everybody I've spoken to in a sort of social media coordination role and at the conference has always been getting that seat at the top table for social media management is really difficult. So how do I get my senior leadership engaged in my social media strategy and stop them thinking that this is just about likes and followers, and it's actually a strategic tool that we should be using for community engagement. And that's still an ongoing theme, I think, even at this year's conference. We started working with Lauren at Buckeye about a year ago, I think it was. Lauren was one of the earlier Orlo customers in the US. And I think Lauren's one of the very few people in this community who's managed to go on that journey quite quickly from social media being just about likes and followers to taking a strategic seat at the top table and making a real impact at Buckeye. So we're really lucky Lauren's going to share some of that with us today. We've got about, I'd reckon, 15-20 minutes of content, and we'll have plenty of time for questions for you guys. It's a sort of small group, right? So probably quite happy to take questions as we go on any of the points that we make, and we'll manage time between us. We're a pretty relaxed bunch. But before we get into it, Lauren's going to give us a bit of background on Buckeye. I'm sure, has anyone ever been to Buckeye? Yeah? Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, exciting. Right.
I didn't expect that.
You can fact check Lauren then, as she does this.
All around the valley,
everywhere. Okay. So we'll get into it, and as I say, any questions we can take them along the way, or if you want to wait to the end, don't worry about it, and we'll crack on into it. Okay? All good?
So as you can see here, Buckeye is absolutely massive. If you compare it to the Phoenix metropolitan area, we are 640 square miles. We can fit quite the majority of the counties that make up Maricopa County within us, but we're only 15% built out. So with that, we were the #1 fastest growing city in the nation from 2017 to 2022. Still #1 in Arizona for growth, but we're also going through a major identity shift. We used to be the alfalfa capital of the world, so we're really shifting from that agricultural sort of small hometown feel, and all of that metropolitan stuff is really starting to push in and have that shift there. So there's a lot going on. Right now our population is sitting, I want to say it's most recently about 120,000, but when we do get to that full build out, we are fully expecting easily over 1 million, if not higher than those projections. But you know, we'll see what the future brings us. So a lot of opportunity right now in Buckeye for sure.
Awesome. And what was the sort of approach to community engagement when you arrived there, Lauren?
Yeah, so on social media, the background with it was one of those jobs that was, when you apply for a position, you see that little asterisk that says other duties as assigned. That was the social media approach, right? So there was no engagement. It was just a digital bulletin board, and you know, there was really no desire to have that engagement either. It was just one of those tasks, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, where social media used to be to where it is now, there is that major shift, and so there was very hands-off with that engagement. Don't respond to comments, and just kind of post up that post, and there you go, and that was it. You know, coming into the city.
So pretty much a sort of bulletin board type approach, and people not really focused on any engagement.
Yeah.
So why did you want to change that though? What made you want to sort of drive something different?
Yeah, luckily I was very, very lucky to be hired specifically to drive that change. And that was definitely to my advantage. The leadership I walked into, that lack of engagement, unfortunately, really created this negative environment that spiraled out of control, and so they brought me on to clean up that shop. They did see the value in the engagement. We had that low trust because of it. I mean, you had the trolls, essentially. You know, I call them frequent flyers because they've got high miles. And, you know, the algorithms too, like, I feel like people feel very comfortable with what they're doing, like day to day. but the algorithms are ever changing, and they're very inbound and outbound, and if you're not constantly aware of that and adjusting, then those algorithms don't get to be sticky, and you want those algorithms to be sticky so that people keep coming and seeing your content. And so that was really where my focus was, and I'm very grateful to my leadership for trusting me to tell them, where we need to change and go along those routes. I had that buy-in.
Oh, cool. And how did you sort of look and work out who you were going to partner with to change that, what tools you were going to use, and what support you needed?
Yeah, initially, I feel like I recruited you guys.
Yeah.
So we have a ton of 55 and up communities, and with
Is that what you're referring to?
I didn't mean that, but no, we have a lot of 55 and up communities, and so with that, Nextdoor is actually one of our biggest platforms to connect with people, and I needed something that helped me do that scheduling process, because it was just one more task to have to keep track of, go in, see notifications, all that. But I knew with that engagement, I wanted that customer service model that I feel like social media really is now, and archiving. The archiving really was something that set Orlo apart from everyone else, because it made it more accessible. I didn't have to go through hoops to see things, and with the way archiving was set up, I saw a lot of value in being able to kind of use that data as a way to inform how my audience was thinking and engaging, and a good example of that specifically is, in the inbox, I can see when someone deletes something. So it's oh, so they asked a question, they realized it was in the post, now I know what information I should have prioritized. So I was able to take those little pieces and adjust my process, and I saw that, and I was oh my gosh, this is great, and it definitely worked out.
And did you work with your CSM on those processes as well, working with Gillian as well?
Oh gosh, I mean, the customer service was truly, truly unmatched. I mean, you don't get that everywhere. They walked me through everything I needed. So when I initially onboarded with Orlo, the big conversations I had was, this is all of the reasons I don't like the scheduling tools that we were previously using. These are my goals. Where does Orlo fit to fill in those gaps? And then we worked from there. So I went into it very mindful of, where I wanted to be and where I felt that I was lacking, and let them, hold my hand that entire process.
Cool. And one of the problems we talked about earlier was getting senior people engaged in the social media journey and customer engagement, or the resident engagement. So how did you manage to do that at Buckeye? How did you manage to get that wider group involved?
Yeah. So I was originally housed in the city manager's office, not the communications office. So I had the buy-in with them. However, I didn't have the buy-in with everyone else who managed other social media accounts throughout the city, right? So I needed to speak their language. I initially came into Orlo, and I was using it to refine my own process with the core pages that we were using, and I saw the success, and the city manager's office is oh my gosh, this is absolutely doing amazing. Now we want our fire, we want our police, we want everyone else to use it. How do we get that change to happen? And so I had those individual meetings with everyone, and I figured out what language I needed to speak to them for them to get it and be ready for that change. So I used their language. I figured out what their goals were, because I knew what was important to me is not going to be what's important to the fire department or recreation, right? So I focused on what their outcomes were, showed them. I essentially demoed for the city, and then just put in the work, just trusted the process, and just continued to help everyone else along the way.
And did you have any particular departments that were positive towards that, or any departments that were real laggards as well? Any secrets?
Yeah, mine. I will say people were very protective of the process they originally had. They were very comfortable with it. And again, that's okay. You know what's working for you. But I feel like the next slide might answer that little bit better, actually.
Okay.
I don't want to ruin it for the.
And so how did you get, apart from just getting people involved, you
Mhm.
obviously need investment for that, people's
Yeah.
time, money,
Mhm.
all those sorts of things. So how did you build the business case around that?
Yeah, I pointed out all the different silos that we had going on in the city. Cause you had one department using one management tool, another department using two different management tools, and then you had someone else just using whatever was free and available to them. So we had all these different systems going on, no one was really collaborating, and I felt like there was a major loss in data, there was a major loss in a centralized brand identity and voice, and a lack of, trust from that, reduced security going on. I mean, there was just so much, how do you track things when there are 7,000 different places, how do we work together? You can't, and so we really needed to bring everyone into that funnel and work together.
Okay, cool. And as you've done that, obviously lots of things have changed.
Yeah.
What have been the bigger changes and the bigger impacts that have happened as part of that journey?
Oh gosh, I mean, our engagement just absolutely skyrocketed. If we looked at just our Facebook page alone from when I started with my position to when I ended the position, our engagement rate online went up over 400%. I mean, that's just insane. It was a lot. It was a little drowning, I'm not gonna lie, but I did that to myself and I loved every minute of it. But also in person too, like we weren't just getting that engagement in our inbox and comment sections, whatever. Our attendance at events were getting better, our engagement in surveys were getting better, we were getting people signing up for newsletters. I mean, overall that data was really starting to pour in and people were seeing the difference that came of that.
Was that something you expected? Because to be honest, I wouldn't have naturally expected that the sort of digital world would have that impact on the physical world as well. Was it something that you expected to happen, or was that a surprise? Or
It was a goal of mine,
Yeah.
because of course we're using people's tax dollars. We're not going to host an event and not want anyone to come
Yeah.
up, So that was absolutely something that was important to me.
Cool. Sorry.
No, but also with that engagement meant connections, people feeling comfortable now asking questions. They weren't, previously they were commenting, looking for some information, and they weren't getting it, so what was the point of commenting, right? But now they see that they're getting responses, and now they're comfortable stepping into that environment. They want to learn more, they are asking those questions. Little did they know I was learning with them a lot of the times, because I just come into working for the city of Buckeye. I don't know the inner workings of every single department. So as they were learning, I was learning, and people really welcomed that. And over time, people really leaned into it. I think a good example of that one is people started letting us know when street lights weren't timed right. Little things like that. And so I'd be like, real story, commented back, let them know, I thought I was crazy. Same thing happened to me. Just reached out to John in transportation. He spoke to whoever. It should be fixed by the end of the day. When I got feedback, word from them that it was fixed, I commented again, followed up with that, right? So that those things really established the trust and people wanting to continue to learn and engage with us, for sure.
Yeah, because one of the things I often hear when I'm here is like people telling me they've switched their comments off or they don't reply to things and things like that. And what I always say to them is it's kind of like a snowball effect. And if you switch your comments off, it's like being at a party and not talking to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like weird. And then once you switch your comments on and you start engaging with it, it snowballs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people sometimes worry about the volumes that might create, and sometimes worry about how they're going to manage that. So how did you manage that? So it must have been an increase in the sort of chatter that was going on.
Yeah, I just adjusted my priorities. I mean, I made it very clear that my engagement was going to be number one. If that meant making one less reel for the week or going to one less event and someone capturing content for me, then so be it. But that engagement was absolutely number one. And because I had success with that in my little, trial period, that was what was able to get all of these stakeholders from every other department to say, okay, yes, fire's in, economic development is in, library system, and so by the end of it, my little test case became everyone else's, like, let's do this, let's make a project out of it.
And what would you say to people who say we've got like lots of negative people, so we switch our comments off because we don't want the negative comments, and we don't want them, we don't want to give those negative people a voice. How did you deal with that sort of thing?
I could not tell you how many times I would call someone and say, hey, I have this comment. Could you help me answer it? And they really, at the beginning, tried to talk me out of it over and over, because they saw it as, I think there was a disconnect in understanding, what social media is. Whatever it was, maybe it's because it wasn't their space. I wonder if some of it might be generational. Whatever it was, they saw those comments as just a one-on-one. And I said, no, like, we have over 100,000 views on this singular post. That means when we're not responding to this comment that sounds factual, whether it is or not, we're not defending ourselves. So of course they're gonna believe it's fact. I mean, how could you not, right?
Yeah, okay, cool. And you talk about trust there. Is there a way of measuring trust? How have you tried to sort of develop that at Buckeye as well? Because it's quite a tricky topic to manage.
There of course is the monitoring tools within Orlo that tells you in the comments, or not comment, data reports, and it'll tell you the sentiment of all these comments coming through. But also we saw our, they say trolls, or I prefer, like I said, frequent flyers. They started to get on board and say, you know what, actually, I did go to this meeting and they did say this. Like, they kind of started to turn on each other, and I'm like, oh, so you mean even our biggest, haters are now kind of seeing the bigger picture and engaging with us. And then just our general residents overall, not even the frequent flyers, they also started coming in and doing my job for me and responding to comments. And so I got to start stepping back, and I would let posts go and comments build up for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours before I got to go in and then either back up what another resident had said for me, or go in and fill in those other gaps there. And it was extremely, extremely successful.
Yeah, because that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it means that in the early days, you probably had an increase in workload because you were engaged in that conversation, but then the community becomes self-managing.
Yep.
In a way, so that's really cool.
And nothing's better than another, other residents saying things are going well. Of course, the city saying, hey, no, like, look, this is, we want to celebrate this. They're going to take that with a grain of salt, because of course we want their buy-in, but someone else who was once weary, it holds just so much more weight, for sure.
Right, so, and I'm sure, although you've done an amazing job, I'm sure you're not perfect, right? So what lessons did you learn along the way? Any mistakes that you made, tips that you could give people to avoid making the same ones?
Yeah. The one thing I would say is, I feel like in this profession, people get really comfortable with how uncomfortable the job can be. It's almost like as you get older, you complain, oh, my knee really hurts. It's just because I'm getting old. Oh, there are solutions to the problems. If it's your knee, maybe you need physical therapy. If it's your job, maybe you just need the tools that help you bridge that gap. And it's about making your life easier. People at first might be, I'm not sure about the change, but then when you present it to them as, it's not that you're doing your job wrong, we just want you to be happier. We just want to make your life easier. It's using that conversation, framing it better for them. And I'm almost taking that defense away, because to a point, it is a little nerve-wracking. Like, what do you mean? I've been doing great this whole time. It's like, no, like, let's just do this together. Let's see how much better we can do. And another thing too is, I feel like a lot of people, above our heads see it as just social media, but it's not. When you have the right tools, it's PR, it's risk management, it's data analytics, it's content creation, it's crisis communications. I mean, we truly do wear so many hats. It is insane. And when you know how to communicate that with your leadership and you show them that, and risk management, that's quite the buzzword. I mean, those things really work, they really resonate. And it all falls into place, and it goes back to earlier where I said, just put in the work. I mean, really just put in the work, and if you trust yourself and you're confident and you persevere, it'll work out as long as you've got the right backing, the right process, the right philosophies, the right data, all that.
Right, cool, awesome. And you've now, as probably people have realised, I think, and we were quite clear in the invite, you've now joined Orlo this week. Lauren started on Monday. Why did you make the switch, interesting enough, from Buckeye to Orlo? 'Cause it's quite a different place, as you found out this week. So.
Yeah, when I came into the city, like I said, I came in with the big goal of, I had this big project, we needed to establish processes, they needed me to drive that change and get that buy-in from all the other departments, bring it all together, right? We talked about that. But I got to that point where I accomplished it all. And so I was like, okay, well, I had so much success, and Orlo was such a key part of that success. I really do just want everyone else to feel that same, like, with their jobs. Because while I like to chase a big project, I'm sure a lot of other people really do just want to be successful where they already are and see where that can take them within their own, organizations.
Awesome, thank you. Has anyone got any questions for Lauren about other things that I've heard, or any questions about how she did it, any problems and things like that, issues she faced? Don't be shy. No? Oh, cool. Yeah, great, thank you.
So when you were trying to get the other departments that had social media to buy into kind of your process change, I know you said to just have those meetings and put in the work. How did that go for you? And were there some that bought into it more than others? Was it kind of everyone against the new person coming in and trying to make these changes?
Yeah, so for some departments, it was a lot easier to back it up. I mean, for example, like an events team, using the language like, oh, well, every time you host these events, you have to monitor comments because people aren't reading, they're asking when the event is, when this is, set up inbox automations, right? You prevent the solution to the problems they already have, right? So really it was just the more I had those conversations and talked to other people, I just had to figure out what worked, that resonated with them, and it wasn't for my benefit. I knew it was for them, but it was building relationships even within my own city. I wasn't just building relationships online. I really needed everyone to be a big team. So I just tackled it that way. Make everyone my friend, get everyone to really share. If you can get someone to vent to you, you really learn a lot. Yeah, it's a good connection point.
Is it a problem that you've got in the city where you are?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. So I am a one-woman band, but I also have several departments who, before I came in, were managing their own social media, and I've finally gotten them to the point of using our brand guidelines.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to get them to the point of, actually being under the umbrella of the city communications. So this is really helpful. Thank you.
But I think I'll come back to you in a minute if that's okay, but I think that's an interesting thing as well, is perhaps not to try to do everything at once and pick what the most important priority is. So obviously brand guidelines is massively important, isn't it? So let's get that as the baseline, and then take the next step, because sometimes, like, you're the subject matter experts in social media. Somebody who's running our parks and rec has probably not got that much knowledge and might be intimidated by it and might be a little bit nervous. And if you try to push it all on them at once, that's going to be quite challenging. So definitely taking baby steps, I think, is the way to go. Sorry, sir. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you. You mentioned engagement rate was up like 400%, I believe you said, which is huge.
Yeah, insane.
What tweaks or changes did you make to really boost that? Was it just understanding the data better, or what would you attribute it to?
Yeah, gosh, just making sure I was always there, like literally just always being present. Because in the private sector, you're selling a service, you're trying to get the return on investment, you want that buy-in, but in public service, I feel like that customer service model still needs to be there, because we're using their tax dollars. They deserve to have that proof that that's happening. And so really engaging with those comments wasn't just being that customer service of, oh, you know, you have a problem, let me help you, but also you can only fit so much into a post, right? So the more engagement we get, I loved it because now they're asking those deeper questions and you have those people scrolling through, and so you end up by the end of it, when your engagement's high enough, people are able to see the full story, and we're able to keep them that way too. So of course you want your scroll stopping, but that engagement, yeah, it really helps. So I just always focus my energy on there. And then tracking the data for, like, in the inbox with that engagement, then being able to put keywords to stuff and what are the number one conversations people are having now that this engagement is high, and how can I pull that for more content ideas? Where am I lacking? You know, great, let's make a video on this because people are still confused. So going from there, definitely, like he had said earlier, take it in steps for sure. Mm-hmm.
And did you share with the departments the increase in engagement rates as well, so you can sort of prove that the extra effort was working, the extra sort of work that they were doing as well?
Yeah, the digital engagement, I definitely shared that, but there were other things like the in-person engagement, they were sharing that with me. I mean, my favorite example is our library does 2 book sales a year, and they usually pull in a good amount of money. It's a fundraiser, but I got the permission and I said, yeah, let me help you promote this one, the next book sale. And they had so many people show up, they were not prepared. They had lines literally wrapping around the library for the first time ever. They've never had to count how many people they can let in and let out, like a bouncer at a door. And so quite like instantly, because we had that engagement, now we had the audience, now I'm helping other people build up their events. That one event made them more money than they were used to making every single year. And so, boom, instantly, you made at least double what you usually make in fundraising. And now we've got over 900 people who went here, ready for the next one, telling their friends. And so it just kind of gets to snowball in a fun way, finally.
Yeah, I do think that's one of the things that people miss when they're trying to justify social media investment or people investment in social media or tools. They forget that actually social media can be a revenue generator. You know, it can be tax dollars by people moving into the city, it can be events, it can be bringing people to things, parks and rec. There's lots of actually ways that you can justify to senior management that you can build a real sort of dollar-based business case for investing in social media. It's not just about engagement, which is actually quite hard to measure the financial benefit of. There are lots of things that can be done. Any other questions, Lauren? No?
You can always find me after or in the app, LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can find
whatever
it on there.
it is, find us. And we have a booth, of course. I think that's pretty easy to spot too.
Yeah, we have a booth, we had a party last night, we're starting to get tired, but that's okay. So one of the things that we're doing at Orlo, and again a conversation that we're hearing with lots of different customers, is we're hearing lots of different things around budget pressure. And obviously some of the things Lauren's just talked about then about how we can justify the investments in social are really helpful. But it doesn't just create free cash, right? So you've still got to get, you know, there's still budget pressure underway. And one of the things that we see a lot of people doing, a lot of people are spending money on sort of social archiving platforms, which is a legislative requirement in lots of states. So I know you have to do that. One of the things I wanted to make clear about Orlo, because we talked about the fact we've got social archiving, is our social archiving is built into the platform. So it's not a cost extra. So one of the things that, that many Orlo customers in the US have done is they've transferred the budget that they've been using for social archiving, which is a sort of once or twice a year insurance policy at best, and using that money to invest in the social media management platform instead, which is going to drive your better engagement and things like that Lauren's just talked about. So that if that is a situation that you're in, where you're struggling to get the budget for the tools that you want, but you are paying for social archiving, come and see us and you might be surprised that you might be able to just swap the budget from one place to another and get both of those things. Because social archiving for us has always been just part of the platform, it's just part of the tech. We didn't have to build it specifically for that legislative requirement. Okay, any other questions? No? We're ready for a coffee or a cup of tea? Okay, cool. All right, well thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you, Lauren, for the presentation, the effort went into that. We are at booth 9, I think it is, but basically it's right by the door. We'd love to see you. And if not, have a great rest of the time in New Orleans. Thank you very much.